Okay, here we are speaking to Darija Abramovič, sports psychologist currently working with reigning French Open champion Igom Švjontek. They've been working together for 2 years, and firstly I would like to thank you, Darija, for joining me. I know that you have a pretty busy schedule with the tournament going on, and not any tournament but one of the 4 biggest tournaments. So I would like, first of all, for our viewers, to those of you who don't know you, to get to know you. If you could just, for starters, tell us something about yourself, a bit about yourself, before we dive into this subject of mental health of athletes.
Sure. Thank you for having me, first of all. Well, I'm a sport and performance psychologist based in Warsaw, Poland. Just like before I pursued my career in sports and performance psychology, I started with sailing. I was sailing, doing this competitively since I was 6. Then stopped when I was 18. That was there is the story with the injury, and then I have been working as a coach for almost or even over 10 years. Graduated from physical education and sport academy, then psychology, clinical psychology, then sports and performance psychology. So that's kind of my area of expertise. And the thing about my work is that I kind of connect and combine all the roles that I have been working in. So basically, I know what's the perspective from the athlete's point of view, coach's point of view. I have been working with the relative, so I understand this type of situation as well. And basically, that's something that I try to implement in my approach, which is actually a holistic approach, because I work in sort of implementing clinical psychology also in sport. So basically, and I think that's relevant, especially right now as we're talking about mental health, not just mental training, that I'm, trying to see the big picture and work like that. I have an experience working with Polish national cycling team, swimming team, with a lot of high performance athletes representing Poland and other nations in sailing, athletics, working with chess players, esports. So a lot
Pretty
of
diverse, yeah.
Yeah, it's really diverse. And currently, my main focus, absolutely, and my priority in work is leadership.
Thank you for this introduction. It will make viewers, it will make them realize easier the place where you're coming from. So the last few days, there's been a lot of talk about Naomi Osaka and her decision to withdraw from the tournament, and that has brought on various subjects, various people talking about mental health, about the relationship between the press and the players, about her press releases and the way Grand Slams behaved responding to those releases. So if you could just give us your take on the whole situation, and how could all of us have been able maybe to handle it differently?
Yes, well, I think from my standpoint, the most relevant thing would be that if any of us would like to have an opinion about someone's behavior, decision, choice, it's fine. Like, we are able and we're allowed to discuss. Like, any of us is able to have an opinion. But what we shouldn't be doing is to comment on someone's mental health and kind of judge in terms of mental health, because if we don't have full information, and we don't, if we don't have, let's just say, the data, quote data, then we're kind of unable to see the context and the big picture. And that, if we would be commenting on someone's mental health, it might be extremely harmful for the person and for the whole discussion. The discussion, which kind of, can be in this turning point right now. This whole situation might be a game changer if we would pursue this sort of education, raising awareness, and this discussion full of empathy and this mutual respect for all, from all the sides of the discussion, from all the people involved. And well, my second thought here, and my second conclusion, is that we do have some, frequent, from time to time, we do have this sort of red flags when that was Kevin Love, former basketball player of Cleveland Cavaliers, writing in Players Tribune about anxiety. That was Jenny Rizvets after Rio de Janeiro. She is an Olympic champion in mountain biking, Sweden. she was, suspending her career because decided to treat the depression. In Poland, for example, we had a lot of context and situation. We in tennis, we have Andy Murray, who was openly speaking about mental health as well. So there are more and more players, more and more athletes, but it's sort of the same reaction. So we kind of, as a society, we kind of stop for a minute and think, okay, well, how is it possible that an athlete, a top level athlete, high performance and high functioning person is, ill, is unhealthy, or there is something going on, he or she is struggling with something. And now what struck me a little is that there are a lot of comments saying that athletes are privileged, that they are better in terms of social and economical status, and that they should be, first of all, not be struggling because they have a great life. And for the second is that, that, okay, but they have so many better ways to seek the treatment that they need, for example. And what we should be remembering about, from my point of view, is that it is the same as an injury or a physical condition.
Yeah.
For example, cancer or heart disease, is that there is no way that the disease will pick someone over someone. It might happen to all of us because there are a lot of factors, and especially as we are talking about mental health, there's a lot of factors in external pressure, internal pressure for, high performance athletes or other people in business, education, artists. It's, living with media, living in a public eye. For example, with Naomi Osaka, it's like living as this figure that is a face of a social change, which might be a burden as well, but obviously I won't be commenting on that further. And what we should be doing is that to try to be open-minded about it and to try to be kind of empathetic in terms of, okay, the mental health is all about that. It might be happening to all of us. And the lessons that's coming from here is that it might just happen. And what we should be doing is that be taking care of ourselves, no matter if we are kind of, high functioning people, or maybe I would just say, again, quote, average people. It just doesn't matter. What we should be doing, benefiting from this situation, and I mean here, sports environment, athletes, coaches, managers, tennis stakeholders, healthcare professionals, is that we should be trying to educate more, to raise an awareness, and try to shed a little bit light on what's actually the most important and most relevant thing here. So it's not all about press and media that they are causing something. In this point of in this moment, I would say that the first statement of Naomi Osaka's might be a little bit disturbing in terms of understanding of what's going on here, because it is kind of one of the factors that are a source of external pressure. But obviously, this is not like cause of all that's happening. But it is a lesson, I think, and I truly believe that it might be a turning point in the discussion about the mental health.
You mentioned several times that this could be a turning point or a learning curve for all of us. So with that in mind, how could we all have reacted differently? Us from the press, the Grand Slams, and Naomi herself. If hypothetically, if this situation were to happen all over again with the knowledge of situation that we have right now, what could have been done differently?
First of all, if an athlete is giving this sort of signals and the rest of the environment would be thinking, okay, well, that's kind of, I wasn't expecting that. That was kind of unexpected what happened. That what I would be advising is that we could try to be more alert of what's going on and maybe try to understand the process, not just the fact. Obviously, that was a disturbing fact, the first statement, and discussing about the press. But on the other hand, what I think, as a person who is in this environment day by day, is living in it, I think we should be discussing a little bit about the press and how tennis stakeholders are approaching media press connecting with players. Also,
sorry to interrupt you, but how would you change it, the relation between the press and the players?
So I will tell you an example. Yesterday or 2 days ago, no, 2 days ago, sorry. 2 days ago, we had a situation with an interview, and I heard that one of the questions that they were asked, and I won't be saying what was the question, but that was the question that kind of breached a boundary in terms of, that was a question about the mental health. And what I did was to contact the press, the media, the company. I actually identified the journalist who asked the question. We contacted the journalist, and we had this very kind, polite, assertive talk about what do we as a team think about the question, how it might be breaching some sort of rules and maybe assertive boundaries, and how it might affect an athlete, especially during a tournament. We discussed this, from different point of views. We've heard what journalists wanted to achieve with this question. I even, talked a little bit with him about the communication and how to maybe reframe the question. We agreed the question was kind of, cleared, ruled out from the interview. But what we did, we kind of, I would say, even cherished the relationship between media and the player team. We kind of secured the safety of the player. We kind of had the talk, and I did some education in terms of what's, from my point of view, psychological point of view, like right or maybe wrong. And it's all happening. We might be, again, having this mutual respect and empathy. It is perfectly fine, and it's possible to have this discussion. So I would be doing this. I would be doing,
more of a hands-on approach.
Well, obviously, it's not all about avoiding press or media for athletes, because it's impossible, especially with the global sport as tennis is. But what we could be doing is to build sort of resources and talk to athletes about how they can approach, how they can, for example, answer sometimes if the question is disturbing for them, that they can say, you know what, it's tough for me. I would prefer not to answer to that. And I think that every journalist would, respect that answer.
Yes, I think we've had those situations in the past, and I personally, I can't remember any time that when an athlete said something like that another journalist insisted on the particular subject.
Yes. So, it's sort of learning how to communicate assertively. It's something, this resource I'm talking about is, for example, setting these healthy boundaries. But what I think strategically is that we really should be focusing on creating and maintaining this kind of healthy relationship between press, media, and players, athletes, teams. I think that everyone would benefit from that. And there is a lot to be done, obviously. There is a lot to be said, but there are some ways. Me personally, professionally, and my team, we are kind of pursuing this way. And maybe someday, someone would like to hear from us. How are we approaching this? And maybe someone would like to cooperate in terms of that.
Going back to your cooperation with Iga, I mean, she's a really young girl, practically a teenager when you started working together. What was interesting for me is how someone as young was so eager to work with a sports psychologist on a permanent basis, constant basis. So what are her traits that make her such a good example in that sense?
Well, she's willing to put the work. She's kind of aware at the first that the psychology, and not just mental training, but psychology in sports probably is one of the puzzles that they are kind of essential for reaching the top level. And even on a worst day, she's open-minded and able to process things. She's really willing to learn, and I found some ways that they work well for her to feed her with some knowledge, not only proper tools, but also knowledge and raise her awareness. obviously with her, interviews, you can probably hear a lot of my thoughts or my knowledge that I'm passing to her, which kind of makes me proud, obviously. But yeah, that's the main trait, that she has this urge to I think broaden her horizons, to expand her horizons, and improve her knowledge in terms, obviously, of the psychology, because on the other topics there are lots of more traits that makes her who she is.
Obviously, you can't go into too many details, but how does your relationship work on a daily basis? Does it all revolve around like casual talk, or do you have like scheduled,
Well,
meetings, or how does it work?
we should start that with that all of us, like all the team, we have our own roles and areas of expertise, but also there is like, always one of us is passing the ball or towel, or prepares food, or giving a lift when we're in Warsaw, and it's kind of a normal thing. So we're kind of implementing all different sort of expertise here, and that's how it makes a good team, because even in individual sport it's always a team sport in some ways, but as for us, it's a lot of casual talks as well. Sometimes this is one of the points of my philosophy. Sometimes this little talk over a dinner or lunch is sort of doing the better job than scheduled session or appointment in the office. We do have some appointments, like very strict, and we do have some casual talks. We do a lot of work on court. We do a lot of work just before the match or practice, or right after the practice or match. Sometimes it's intense. Sometimes I am very direct with my communication, and sometimes I'm very off, and she's kind of taking the charge. So I'm kind of, all the time sensitive on what does she need, and try to suit the program the best as it's possible individually.
Could you name possibly one example where we could, on court, let's say, recognize your influence in between points or in between games?
You can probably see this between the games, when there is a change, like how she approaches the breaks. She often breathes or doing other stuff. Or for example, you could watch how she's behaving between the points when she just turns back from the net and thinks a little bit, takes some breath. Well, but the most of the thing you can't see them, because there is a lot of preparation before the match. There's a lot of
Because they're in their head.
yeah, and there's a lot of routines, starting from waking up, doing some stuff in some order that we know that works well. So yeah, I think it's just in her. I wanted to say blood, but it's not like that. But it's kind of a routine to do that.
I've read in one of your recent interviews that you've changed a few things in order for Iga to better deal with pressure now that she's a Roland Garros champion. So what are those tweaks and adjustments that you've made?
Well, first of all, I put a lot of work in this off-court stuff, such as building personal brand, communicating with management team, raising awareness in terms of this business side of tennis, because that's one of the sources that makes you feel kind of comfortable off court. And then, if you feel safe in these areas, you are able to be focused more on your tennis and practice and performance. We put even more work on maintaining the balance between work and recovery, especially with all the sponsor and partnership stuff that it is involved in right now. And that's sort of that these are sort of the main things that I would be saying. So it's not like it's even change of something. It's just putting more pressure on sort of different puzzles in all that.
In which direction? Are you like, okay, maybe you're doing too much media or too much sponsor stuff now, you should lay off, or does it work like that? Or
It's more of teaching Ida how she can identify this by herself. It's not like I am in charge of saying this is too much, you should be recovering right now, you could get some rest or something. It's just sort of, how could you possibly know it about yourself that, okay, I think that this is the time for me to rest a little bit, or this is the time for me to shift my narrative a little bit, because I'm too tired or something. So basically what we do is to get to know myself as an athlete better.
I didn't catch that last sentence. Sorry, it's because of the wind.
No worries. I just said that it's more about getting to know my body and my mind better.
Yeah, and I'm going to quote Iga now. She once said, I can understand my own feelings and I can say them out loud. She just makes my confidence level higher. You just spoken about your approach that is holistic and your communication that is sometimes direct, sometimes not so much. But if you could single out one or two things that are the main characteristics of your approach, what would those be?
I would say this balance between work and recovery, especially for top athletes, it's sometimes more about having this well-rested mind and body, because this is one of the source of self-efficiency and self-confidence. So creating this balance and maintaining the balance, which actually means sometimes focusing on very simple things, and a lot of top athletes are actually forgetting about it. So that would be maybe the first thing. The second one would be that I see.
Sorry, Daria. We often hear people from sports saying small things and details, but what exactly are these small things? Could you name one or two, maybe?
Yeah, so maybe putting a very strong, work in terms of quality and quantity of sleep, or being aware that sometimes changing the perspective a little bit, like seeing a sunset or drink a good coffee, having this pause button press and think, okay, this is a very nice moment, or being appreciative of that even on the worst day there is still possibility for joy. These are small things, and I understand, and sometimes when I hear myself repeating that constantly on every single interview, I might think, this is too simple, but my area of expertise shows that it's true. And as I mentioned, in this striving for perfection or in this pursuit of excellence, we often forget about it. And it actually brings this basic and fundamental peace of mind. If we don't have this basic needs fulfilled, there is no chance that we'll be able to be constantly out of our comfort zone. And actually, the COVID showed us that, that there is this sentence that I saw this on some graphic on the internet, that I thought that 2020 would be the year that when I achieved everything I wanted, and now I know that 2020 is the year in which I appreciate everything that I have. It is very simple, but it's kind of the fundamental truth for athletes. I know that a lot of people are talking about it, but trust me, a lot of people doesn't put this much effort as it should be put it.
Don't believe it, yes.
So the other thing, would be that I put more and more, especially working with top athletes, I put more and more pressure on working with cognitive abilities and managing the tension and stress. These are kind of combined and connected areas, because as sort of we want to peak with our performance during a match, it's extremely important to have the recovery period as well. As we do for body, we should be doing this with a willpower, concentration, focus, reaction time, attention, and all other cognitive abilities, problem solving, decision making. So what I teach my athletes, especially top ones, is to manage all that. So that's why you probably can see sometimes either doing some Lego bricks, puzzles, some analog old school stuff, because from one hand it helps with cognitive training, and from the other hand it gives us rest from technology, this stuff.
I know what you mean. And going back to court, tennis players, when they analyze a match, they often say, I could not maintain my focus throughout the whole match, or I don't know, choked, or I succumbed in key pressure moments. Are there any special techniques in order to deal with those situations, to prolong that focus, or to, be aware of the crucial moment and deal with it?
It always starts with an awareness. It kind of starts and ends, I would say, with an awareness, with being aware of what's happening, why is it happening, and then what should I be doing with that. And yes, there are some ways, there are some techniques which are obviously part of my know-how, so I won't be sharing them. And,
we need to pay for that.
Well, yeah. But yes, there are some ways, you know. This is part of the cognitive training, obviously, especially as I mentioned, combined with stress management, tension management, because when the pressure is coming into the place, it's sort of more difficult to maintain the focus, as you've mentioned. So yeah, it's obviously. And obviously, nowadays, especially, there's more and more technology that helps with that. It's biofeedback, it's EEG, it's RHRV, some sort of devices that help with that. And, you know, as in physiotherapy, strength and conditioning training, we do have some more and more measures because science is a great stuff. It's amazing. And we do have more and more ways to measure, to have conclusions, to just, you know, sort of make some improvements in all that.
Okay, and tell me, since Iga won the French Open and came into the spotlight so much more, has she changed in any way? Positive,
No.
negative?
Well,
No?
yeah, maybe, no, that was a fast answer, maybe too fast. Yeah, she did change, you know, she had this sort of way that she got even more mature than she was before, more steady, thoughtful about others. So yes,
Sorry. Once again, I couldn't. You said steady and I didn't hear after that. Sorry.
steady and more thoughtful about other things. So yes, I mean there are some changes. It's, you know, it's just because this experience was so, you know, so relevant and crucial for her that she had this quick lesson of how to get mature. We have to finish. Sorry, is it okay with you? I
Of
really
course,
have to go.
I was about to finish.
Yeah. So
So
sorry.
I want to thank you once more for
Yeah.
taking out the time, and good luck for the rest of the tournament.
Thank you. Thank you.
See you.
Bye bye.
Bye.